Headline news most affecting Chilliwack this week. The FVRD receiving $200,000 for river cleanup, but will it do the job? A Chilliwack musician winning big at the Juno Awards. Trans Mountain construction, that will cause delays in hope, and it's an almost, but not quite, for the Unity Christian basketball program. We'll have more in sports. Our special guests this week include an update with the Chilliwack Players Guild and Chilliwack-Kent MLA Kelli Paddon. All right, Chilliwack, let's get started. The province is providing $200,000 to the Fraser Valley Regional District to create a fund to help clean up efforts along the Chilliwack and the Vedder River. The Chilliwack-Vedder River Cleanup Society have had meetings with their local area rep, that's Patty McAhonick. They're still not sure how this money is going to be allocated, but their concern is that the money is there for the cleanup, but really doesn't tackle the major issue of homelessness and the reason why homeless camps are there along the riverside to begin with. The province has introduced amendments to the Vital Statistics Act. Now, this bill proposes to amend the act in a couple of ways. In January of 2022, the province made it possible for people 12 and older to change their gender markers on their birth certificates without a doctor or a psychologist confirmation. The First Amendment will bring the legislation into alignment with a policy implemented last year, and the second proposed amendment changes the requirement in that act for information that must be included on a birth certificate. That allows individuals to request a birth certificate without a gender marker. Chilliwack-Kent MLA Kelli Paddon was very busy last week with budget talks in Victoria. We're going to ask her about the budget money and where it's going to go. That's coming up in just a few minutes' time. In Cultus Lake, work is continuing on the Lakeside Trail segment connecting Sunnyside Campground to Entrance Bay. Now, there will be single-lane alternating traffic in the area from 7 to 5 every day, but this could take up to 6 weeks to complete. In hope, there will be a full temporary closure of Othello Road for the Trans Mountain pipeline construction. That'll be between the 24th of this month and April the 12th. This is going to be from Kakwa Lake Road to the Blue Triton facility. Trans Mountain plans to deliver oil to its Westridge Marine Terminal in Burnaby during the first quarter of 2024. BTO, Celine Dion, Gordon Lightfoot, Nickelback, Carly Rae Jepsen, The Weeknd, Justin Bieber, just a few names who have won Juno Awards in the past. Add to the list Chilliwack's own Teen Days. He's also known as Jameson Isaac. And on Saturday night in Edmonton, he won the Juno Electronic Album of the Year Award. That was his 10th album, his first ever Juno nomination, his first ever Juno win. It is the annual plowing tradition, and laughing at a few politicians who think they know how to run a plow and plow a field, the 101st annual Chilliwack Plowing Match is coming up at Greendale Acres on April the 1st. This special family-friendly event is, it'll be a good old-fashioned day on the farm. Tickets are available online. This is near the Chilliwack Golf Club where the Chilliwack Corn Maze happens every year. And we have a little housekeeping to do on our part. We grew a little tired of how our Facebook page looked, so that the powers that be decided to give the chillTV Facebook page a brand new look. A little bit of a paint job, so check it out. After the break, we will have an update on the Chilliwack Players Guild, as well Chilliwack-Kent MLA Kelli Paddon, and a look at that heartbreaking loss for the kids at Unity Christian and their basketball program. Sports is coming up. News of the Week continues in conversation with Chilliwack-Kent MLA Kelli Paddon. To say you had a busy week last week is an understatement. We've got a lot of territory to cover, and a lot of projects with some big tag items. Where do we start? I know the Fraser Valley Regional District is going to get a chunk of money. Now, is this all going to be for river cleanup? What exactly is happening with that fund?
Yeah, so there's a couple pieces of good news that I was able to share with FVRD. So one is $200,000, for the cleanup. We know that the encampments in the Chilliwack River Valley are a human issue, a safety issue, but it's also an environmental issue. And so that $200,000 will go a long way to supporting the cleanup efforts while we continue to work, the Ministry of Housing, Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Environment, we're all working on the bigger issue of the encampments, but that money will go to cleanup. I was also able to, through the growing community funds, all municipalities and regional districts also got money from the provincial government to support infrastructure work that they're doing, the priorities locally. And so FVRD is getting 8.8 million. So that's fantastic. And Chilliwack, 16.3 million.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and all the municipalities across the province.
Now, when that money goes out, I would assume then it's the regional district or the city that breaks that down, or are there any suggestions from the province? Can you spend it on schools? Can you spend it on garbage? What can you do? Or is that pretty much up to the regional districts in the small areas?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the money will go out, and it will be up to the municipalities in the regional district. The money is for growing infrastructure, growing needs, as the community grows, hence the name. It's a great name for that, right? Because we know that populations are growing and that there are priorities that cities, municipalities, regional districts have, so this money can go towards those priorities, and those priorities are set locally.
Are there any big ticket items that you know of right off the top of your head that are going to be kick-started here, or is that still something in progress?
I mean, you mean with this fund?
Yeah,
here?
with that fund, yeah.
So those will be decisions for council or what have you. I did hear the mayor this morning on the radio, I think, with a few hints or directions. So I'll leave it to him to talk about what's happening in Chilliwack.
And that was what, Chilliwack Mayor Ken Popoff?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing that I know that you've been big on this, Project AIM has been big on this, and that is contraception and other products. Now, how is this working with money going in and funding this? Because I know that's been a pet project of yours.
So with the contraception?
Yeah.
All right, so my other role, is Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity for British Columbia. I love this. I love the work involved. And when we released Budget 2023, the minister announced that as of April 1st, British Columbians will have access to free contraception. And it covers, the oral contraception, the pill, IUDs, injections, implants, morning after pill, all of that. So the out-of-pocket cost for British Columbians will be $0.
Okay. And got to ask, is that going to be through schools, or is that through your physician or private, or how is that going to work? Yeah,
so a lot of people access through their primary care provider, but we know that not everybody has access, and access to reproductive choice and health is a big deal. So pharmacists will also be able to prescribe for contraception as well. And so the access piece is big. The cost piece is big too, because we know there's a cost, to covering contraceptions. But within the first 3 years, we're going to see over $5 million benefit in our healthcare system as a result of being able to offer access to these choices. So, contraception, reproductive health, it's not a luxury, it's a right. And so I'm really excited about that announcement.
Anything else that stood out for you last week from, and some people might be cynical saying that it was and I've heard this from other critics, if you will, that the pickup truck with the money in the back and it was being shoveled out. But there's a lot of projects. Anything else that we haven't touched on that should be brought into light?
So I've heard some commentary, some colorful description about, you could draw a picture maybe, but at the end of the day, we know what we're coming out of. We know British Columbians are struggling. I hear from it right here in Chilliwack-Kent, and investing in people has to be the focus. So it's not the time to be cutting things. So when we have surplus to work with, dealing with some of those immediate needs, one of the really fantastic things was the cancer plan. We know, everybody knows somebody who's been impacted, and to be able to fund, cancer program is going to be, it's going to make a really big difference for people. So that's just one of the other investments that are happening. And now we're rolling into budget for next year, and really excited to see some of the work that's happening there as well.
Kelli Paddon, the MLA for Chilliwack-Kent, thanks again for dropping by.
My pleasure.
You're watching News of the Week.
Welcome to Make a Night of It. I'm Jean-Louis Bleau, and I have some guests from the Chilliwack Players Guild that are with me today, and I'm extremely excited for their up-and-coming show, which is April 20th to the 30th at the Cultural Center. I'm passionate about Shakespeare. It's a show about Shakespeare, but as I understand it, it doesn't involve Shakespearean language, so maybe, Clint, you can tell me a little bit about that.
Thanks, Jean-Louis, and welcome to Chilliwack. I
Thank
get
you.
a chance to say that publicly. I hope you're enjoying your new gig with the Cultural Center. We're certainly enjoying having you here. As you said, we've got a production coming on with the Players Guild called The Book of Will, and it's the story of Shakespeare's plays and how they were accumulated, gathered, and published after his death. And it doesn't sound like a difficult thing, but when you come and see the play, you realize that his plays weren't all written down, and those that were burned up in the theater years shortly after he stopped writing. So the gathering of all of his work was quite an undertaking. And just like the Shakespeare that you might watch, it has love, it has comedy, it has tragedy, it has all the elements of a Shakespearean play without the Shakespearean language. So it's written in modern language. So those that might be going, oh, Shakespeare, I don't know, I have trouble getting that. It's not. It's a modern language telling of the true story of the accumulating of Shakespeare's first folio.
Oh, it's based on a true story.
It is the absolutely true story of how those plays were gathered and printed in what's called the first folio. And I believe there are 30 or so in public hands around the world. That's all. There's, I think, about 250 of them survive today, but most of them are in private collections. But there's 30 of them that exist in public hands, and one is in fact at the UBC Library. So,
Oh, fantastic.
It was on display a couple of years ago at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and if you get to see it, it's quite a big deal.
And so it's about the printing of those folios in some respects, and I understand that the set has something to do with that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, the set is various locations around London at the time and in Stratford, and so it has to be sort of a multi-function thing. So it's quite stylized, stylistic, if you will, but I think it'll be clear to the audience where they are at and what things are about just from the context.
And Graham's being somewhat modest because he designed this all to work, and we have elements of the set of the actual book. We have elements of the Globe Theatre with architectural representations of that. We have elements of an old pub and other people's houses, and to make all that work, there are 18 different scenes in the production, and probably 7 or 8 different locations, and to make that work in a small space, as you know, at the Studio Theatre is quite a feat. So that was Graham's job. I dumped it off as director to Graham as designer, and he came back with a...
Actually, now Clint's being modest because he had a very good vision of sort of the overall concept of what he wanted. So it was quite nice. It was a lot of fun to design this one. You know, quite often we just have a box set, you know, with doors and windows and representational of the interior of a house or something. But this one, because it's so many different scenes, it gets to be more representational and a lot more fun to design.
And we're going to throw music and projections in as well. So it's going to be quite the undertaking.
Oh, fantastic. This sounds like an amazing show, an amazing production. I know that I'm super excited for it. So you can get tickets at the Chilliwack Cultural Center by phoning the Center box office or going online, and it's April 20th to the 30th. And this is Make a Night of It. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Chilliwack's Unity Christian went for the boys, BC Boys High School 1A basketball title, the provincial one last weekend at the LEC. It was almost, not quite. They lost 72-68 to King David of Vancouver. Mama Krista V tried not to shed any tears when she spoke with chillTV, but she was very, very proud. In fact, quote, "Heartbreaking loss, not the finish we were hoping for, but to show such grace and humility showed the true character of the team." BC Hockey League working alongside the NHL Seattle Kraken for the league's annual showcase event. That will be at the Kraken Community Iceplex in Seattle. That is their official practice facility for the NHL team. They will be hosting all 18 BC Hockey League teams in October as they will play 2 regular season games in front of the fans, NHL scouts, and NCAA coaches over a 4-day stretch. You might recall the showcase was calling Chilliwack home over the past 10 years. Chilliwack Chiefs holding their Indigenous Night at the Coliseum this Saturday. The pregame, the Chiefs will be joined by a number of Indigenous leaders and community members, as well. Inez Louis from Skokali First Nation will be singing the national anthem. And in the second intermission, Sahelish dancers will be performing. Valley soccer program's rather pumped about the announcement of a new collaboration between 4 grassroots soccer organizations in the Fraser Valley. And starting with this spring season, the clubs, the Abbotsford Soccer Association, Chiacton FC, Chilliwack FC, and Abbotsford United will be joining forces to provide more opportunities for local players to compete and improve their skills. This through the establishment of what's called the Alliance Center of Excellence. They'll begin with a special focus on players, boys and girls, born in 2011, and the forerunner for what the Alliance hopes will be a future opportunity for more players and families in the Fraser Valley. Staying with soccer, Canada Soccer releasing key elements of the proposed landmark collective bargaining agreement. The proposed agreement in front of the national team players, quote, demonstrates Canada Soccer's commitment to the core principle that if you are a Canada Soccer team player, regardless of gender, you're going to be paid the same. Now, this directly affects Chilliwack's own Jordan Heidema. She's on the national women's team and a big critic of how the women were being paid. Cultus Lake's Reese Hounden won the bronze in the FIS World Cup ski event last weekend in Switzerland. Now he is back on Canadian soil for the final race of the season, still leading the World Cup standings. The race is this weekend at the Craigleith Ski Club in Ontario. BC Community Football Association's showcase event will be returning to Chilliwack for The Game. That's April 29th at Exhibition Stadium, featuring players from across the province. And it will also be a tribute to Abbotsford's Boseko, Bo, and Nelson Lucambo. The boys, they're local products. They're from WJ Mowat and both playing in the CFL. Bo is with the Lions. Nelson is with the Riders. And one other hockey note, with some football. The Valley Huskers are presenting the Chilliwack Giants game on Friday night. It is the St. Patrick's game with a little bit of green beer. The Chilliwack Chiefs will be taking on the Victoria Grizzlies. Coming up, we're going to have a look at weather. And will this first or last weekend before the real spring be actually worth it?
Hello, weather this week is from me, Cari, and look at that, we get some sunshine over the weekend. It's fabulous, double digits, woohoo! And then, sadly, when we go back to work, some clouds, but then Wednesday, sunny again, maybe. I said that last week too, but I'm never quite right, so that's it for the weather. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Cari. If you'd like to participate in reporting news in Chilliwack and you have a story you think we should know about, you can always send us a note and your video and your pictures to news@chilltv.ca. We'd love to hear from you. That's the news this week. Don't forget that Friday is St. Paddy's Day, which means I go from Franco-German Russian to Irish. Have a great day. I'm Don Lehn. Wink.